All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Wheel Wednesday Behind the Wheel podcast. I'm over here wearing a set of headsets, so you guys know what that means. It means that we're going to be joined by a guest today, but I'm over here sitting with my coworker and friend, Daut, and, what we're going to be talking about today is some news in F1.
Big news in F1.
So I know it's kind of shaking up the world right now.
Dude, that thing blew up social media. I couldn't scroll through social media without seeing that.
So Lewis Hamilton leaving Mercedes and going to Ferrari is big news.
But
there's also a lot of other big news going on in F1 right now.
There's a ton of big news.
And right now who we have with us is going to be one of the newest member of the Konig team, John, and he's going to be he's a marketing guy from Konig now, and he's going to be the marketing manager, and he's going to be joining us via webcam. So John, how are you?
Hey buddy.
Hey, how's it going? Pleasure to be a part of the team. Super excited. Pretty rad to be working for such a brand in the wheel space, and it's cool to be on podcasts like this that we can talk about automotive, right, and not sort of feel stressed to do other things and just kind of shoot the nonsense about what's happening in the automotive landscape. And yeah, as you're mentioning, the silly season is in full effect with Formula One right now.
Absolutely. I'm dying for it, dude. Yeah, I can't wait for it anymore.
You as a fan, John, what are some of the things that you've seen that are just like, between it being in silly season and this big news? I mean, how do you kind of take all this in?
Well, let's rewind a little bit, and Lewis is one very big piece of the pie. But you also have the whole Andretti situation that blew up, them trying to get into Formula One to be the 11th team. And that's something that we've been teased with for, I think, over a year, something like that. And then with Lewis jumping to Ferrari, what's going to happen, just sort of team as a whole, who's going to come with, in his backpack, who's the entourage rolling with him to Ferrari? How does Mercedes kind of fill in all those gaps in between or stop those vacancies from appearing? And then Red Bull had some stuff that popped up today with Horner, I think yesterday. That's still trying to get fleshed out where that's going to go. But as a fan, this has probably been one of the gnarliest silly seasons of silly seasons. Every year, I think we can expect to see some driver jump into another team. Something's going to occur, but something of this magnitude and this much of a shift. Hello, left field. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, for someone who stays on top of it or whatever, and for people who listening, I'm not the F1 guy. I don't stay on top of it all that much. Of course, I appreciate the sport, but it's just not my cup of tea, I guess I could say. But, John, I would say, did you think you saw this coming in any way, or do you think there are people out there that actually, could have saw this coming? Because from my understanding, it seems like Hamilton was going to be staying with Mercedes until he retired.
Yeah, I'll revert back to my original statement. Hello, left field. Haven't seen
Yeah.
It's if you look back, keep in mind, I'm not a news person in the Formula One space. I do not have boots on the ground as far as what's happening. I'm purely taking in what I'm seeing online from what reports are coming through. And interviews that have taken place with, say Hamilton or Toto and all that kind of stuff. And one thing I found very interesting was Toto has brought up, Toto Wolff being the principal of Mercedes-AMG Formula One team, was that Hamilton's contract was going to be a 2-year contract versus a 3-year contract, of which he originally wanted. And they did that. What's that?
I thought it was they only offered him one. I saw somewhere that they only offered him 1 year.
No, so originally he wanted a 3, and then it was a 2 with an opt-out, I think it was, or something along those lines.
Oh, so he decided to opt out.
Yeah. And then he also, there's been talk that, he wanted to be an ambassador for Mercedes for a decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Mercedes came back and said, here's a 2-year deal, and we'll figure out the ambassador thing down the road, or something along those lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and Toto said, listen, we weren't in the position to give that full commitment, and we wanted an opportunity that could end up being beneficial for both entities, which is pretty rad if you think about it. Maybe they're not in that position to do it, but at least they're seeing both sides of the coin, right? Of kind of what's going on. Lewis made the decision to bounce, and from what we're seeing from the Ferrari deal, he is certainly going to be an ambassador for the brand. And the other side of it though too, and like Ferrari and Formula One is so iconic, right? But then if we sort of look back at the drivers that have left Formula One, right? They've kind of had their careers, like look at Vettel, Schumacher, all that kind of like just the bigwigs. Alonso, right? They all seem to like, everyone wants to race for the prancing horse. They do their stint and then they basically bounce.
Yep.
It's almost like the last pit stop. Ferrari.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but even if you look, I think Senna, before he passed away, he was even saying that he wanted to drive for Ferrari.
Who doesn't, right?
Well, of course. It's just,
such an iconic brand, but then again, if you look at Ferrari on the grid, they're a good team. I wouldn't call them a great team.
Yeah, well, there's some letdowns on there, with that team.
Some?
I was being nice, John.
No, I hear you. Like, and listen, I'm a fan of motorsports across the board. Big fan of like IMSA. I try to follow that as much as I can. Formula One definitely takes up more of my time.
Yeah.
I don't follow a lot of NASCAR, but from a Formula One perspective and a fan's perspective, it's rad seeing kind of what's taking place. And it's great to see there's a bit more of adoption of it here in the States, because historically, like way back in the day, for the folks that were Formula One fans, like if you even rewind the clock a decade, right? Dude, you're waking up like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You got some bootleg channel to find it. Like you were in it. Yeah. Now, between their app and online, like it's hard not to find it, right? And so when you have such an audience that is following what's going on and seeing major shifts like this, it sort of begs the question, like what is happening with Formula One as a whole too, right? And I can't help but think about, Hamilton being one thing, but what about Andretti, right? Yep. Such an iconic name in IndyCar, in Formula One, like racing as a whole, right? And the one thing that they haven't really dug into is off-road racing. But from a road course and road racing perspective, Andretti is synonymous with racing, right? And to see a brand like that, or a racing team like that get denied, and see Formula One's response to it, I can't help but think about what's going on behind the curtains of Formula One.
Yeah,
I feel like they're being like overly proud of themselves to a degree.
John, when I see news like this, it makes me wonder, like, with all the money that they put into Formula One and every single event and stuff like that, on a season like this where, what is it? Verstappen's already won, right? Is that what it is for this season? And
he won the 2013. So Red Bull won overall as a constructor championship, champion. And then Verstappen won overall driver.
So if they're going to put all this money into the events or something like that, and it's coming to a point where I guess maybe some of the electric has died out, how much of this do you think is even planned to the part where they know it's going to be electric news or kind of big news, or is it just really just one individual's decision?
In this case, I think it was one individual's decision.
So even with all that money, you don't think that there was any other kind of, factors that immediately went into his decision?
I think there's always going to be some sort of factor.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean, but from Formula One, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm not wording that correctly.
No, I think as an organization, like maybe there's some things. It's almost like everyone says the NFL is rigged, right? Like,
yeah. That's kind of what I was getting to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen anything to think otherwise, right?
Right.
The only thing that is kind of crazy is, if I recall, Ferrari gets like a lion's share of the winnings just because they have been a constructor in the program for so long, and they sort of orchestrated a deal that they get a lot more than the rest of the teams. But I think that in the day and age where there are a lot of strategic decisions made, there's always that whim, right? There's always that that thought that sort of something that happens in the back of your head. And if these contracts are written in such a way that a driver like Hamilton can leave early, great, like awesome, but is he going to capitalize on it, right? to make a move like this, he is really grown with Mercedes. He grew a lot with McLaren prior to that. But I feel like we've grown to know him more through Mercedes than any other team he's done before.
Well, six championships will do that for you with Mercedes.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point.
I think he's at 7 championships, 1 with McLaren, and then 6 with Mercedes.
It's crazy.
I think he's been with Mercedes for what, 20?
No, it's been a decade.
Yeah, over a decade now.
Yep.
So it's that's got to leave a
Yeah.
some type of mark right there. I never would have thought I would have seen Lewis leave Mercedes. That's just my opinion. I never would have thought. I would have thought he would have gotten his 8th title right there and retired.
So I guess now the question is like, Rich, as I'm sure you watch Formula One a little bit, but like you see in your eyes, you see a shift like this. Like, what are you thinking?
Well, I'd like to get caught up with it to see, why has it been such big news? As a person who's not a diehard fan of any sorts, it seems interesting, but it doesn't get me like, oh, wow, did you see this or whatever it may be? Because just frankly, I just don't have, it's not something I follow all that closely. But from my perspective, it almost seems like, why would you turn your back on your team like that this far into it? You were at 6 championships with them. I feel like you should ride it out into the sunrise.
I don't think
into the sunset.
I don't think he was happy with Mercedes.
I know,
car.
but there's a sense of loyalty there.
There was some talk about him not liking the car at all too, and then just Ferrari came out and made him an offer that like he was like, nah.
Listen,
there's
again,
no
I'm just talking here.
Yeah, no, I know.
I don't
I'm
have
more just
all the knowledge on it, but like it just seems like to me, I feel like I would have, maybe like you said, ended off on an 8th championship, right off into the sunset, and there's your story, So
did you hear that?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So having said that, and you've seen kind of what's progressed in the past week now. Mm-hmm. Are you more inclined to want to watch Formula One?
Honestly, probably not. But I'm not gonna lie.
There's nothing to lie about.
I mean, for me in particular, Max knows this, Scott knows this, everyone here knows this. I'm just the type of guy that like I want to be interested in stuff that I could do in the next month. Like, if I'm never gonna drive a F1 car, I'm not gonna be an F1 driver.
I don't think we could fit an F1
right,
car.
Yeah,
We're
I
not
can't fit in an F1 car.
pounds.
That's right. So, that being said, there's how many F1 drivers are there? I mean, is it just 10 because there's only 10 teams, or?
Well,
there's two per team.
Okay, so there's 20. It seems like you have a better chance to get into NBA or something. You know what I mean?
I don't think we're gonna make it to the NBA either.
Listen, but you're telling me there's a chance. But
one in a million.
Yeah, and you've got all the development drivers.
Yeah,
you've got all the lower divisions. You've got karting.
Yeah,
but it's a lot like IndyCar and karting and the Miata program, right? The whole Miata program is essentially a funnel to IndyCar, right? Mm-hmm. And there's the same thing to be said with Formula One and sort of how drivers get funneled through the system.
Yeah,
and the cream rises to the top. They're 20 of the best drivers in the world, and then also look at some of the drivers that have done it in the past. Yeah, it's crazy what goes into Formula One, and I think it's probably one of the reasons why I follow it. One is a bit of a marketer, kind of how the whole program is marketed, and kind of all the craziness in between. Sort of even seeing the advertisements at the races and just sort of understanding of ad dollars across the space, and how the programs are marketed. I mean, look at what went into Vegas, right? Yep. Vegas was an interesting race.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah. And there's the numbers that go into each Formula One race rival that of our Super Bowl. Yeah. Right. But there's 20 plus races in their season versus a Super Bowl. Right. So it's who, has multiple Indy titles to his name, right? He has, what race did there was a notable race he won last year, but he had an overall title at IndyCar. He's now a Rolex 24 winner. Like, that is rarefied air. Yeah. Right? There's very few drivers. And so I would, in that sense, attending the Rolex I think general admission was like $100 for 4 days, right? Good luck going to a Formula One race. Like, what were tickets for Formula One Vegas?
It was $5,000, right?
Well, one thing with Vegas, those prices drop pretty quickly. Like all of their hotel prices and the ticket prices dropped significantly. But if say you went to Canada or anything, for that weekend you're at $5,000-6,000, and that's like hotel stay and ticket, and I don't even think that's enough.
You could, I mean, think of if you were to go to a track day weekend and spend $5,000, what damage you could do with that.
So
I can
much,
only imagine.
You know, so like, and that's kind of, you know, it goes back to you, Rich, is like doing things that are more tangible to what you can access and do. Like it's cool to have like Formula One is like the pie in the sky, right?
No, I know. Like, listen, my opinion with this stuff kind of falls in line with my view on cars in general. Like, if, you know, F1, if it's considered like the pinnacle of motorsports or whatever it may be, if I take some of the most impressive cars in production or whatever it may be, whether it's a Pagani or a Bugatti or something like that, I don't get all that crazy about those cars. I'm not a hyper supercar guy. And again, it's because like I don't see that level of tangibility. At least in the near future, definitely. That's something that I can kind of experience. So I normally detach myself from stuff like that. So I think in the same sense, like grassroots road racing, drifting, and stuff like that. That's something that I could literally do next year if I wanted to, and that's the kind of stuff that gets me really excited. But I do completely understand how, as an automotive enthusiast, when you see stuff on this caliber, how it's really, really entertaining, and just, you can have a passion for it. There's no doubt about that. I get that.
What about yourself, Daut?
Like just views on it, I guess, in general.
I'm entertained by it. I do love it. I love F1. I love Formula Drift. I'm into it all. As far as anything else, like, I don't know. I don't know if I could fully agree with you. I could definitely agree with you as far as like your exotics, like the Bugatti and stuff like that will never get, one of those like non-obtainable things. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It still interests me.
All right, cool. I mean,
it still interests me. Like I'd still go spend. I'd probably spend the $5,000 to go see an F1 race at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus taking your approach to it and not,
Yeah.
I think you need to do, I think you need to watch that Netflix series that they did, because
Drive to Survive.
That grabbed a lot of people that I know and got them into
Max
F1.
and I were talking that we all know that the Drive to Survive brought a lot of attention to F1.
That brought a
massive
amount of attention to the U.S. though.
Yeah,
that's really the U.S. audience. I think increased a lot.
Now they're doing that series with NASCAR on Netflix, and I wonder if they're trying to do the same kind of marketing scheme with that.
But NASCAR is big in the U.S.
No, I know.
NASCAR might not be big in New York.
I know, but
in
Netflix
California.
Netflix is going to show that elsewhere.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it'll definitely increase.
What are your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually started the NASCAR series.
How is it? I haven't watched it.
And I can appreciate NASCAR for what it is. It's not my cup of tea, right? Like,
I'd
you can only
agree
make
with
so
you.
many left turns in one day, right?
Yeah, I'd agree there.
And while I appreciate what NASCAR has been going through, and even the car itself, they race, it's being structured in such a way that it can, it's not quite what it was back in the day. Like the cars are a bit more, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, but it's like the director set that everyone can build, right? Like they've put some boundaries in line for the chassis that everything isn't as bespoke, right? And so, and then also they shifted it to center lock wheels. The cars themselves are just, they can shift easier from an oval course to a road course, right?
Well, based on watching the series or so, do you think it might have the same kind of caliber of interest and the way it resonates with people, the way the Drive to Survive series did?
I don't know yet. The reason being is that NASCAR was already here in the States, right?
Yeah.
Already has a following here in the U.S.
Yep.
Formula One has had a following, but not to that degree, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, the Drive to Survive, I mean, they went through a lot of different avenues, a lot of different teams, and I think the picture that they painted from each of the teams and how everyone worked with one another was intoxicating to follow for folks that haven't watched it before, right? Mm. You know, they didn't know that this was the intricacy that went into Formula One, right? Yeah. Whereas NASCAR, you know, after I think I'm on like episode 2 of the series, it's like, I kind of anticipated it, right? Like I kind of expected it. Like it's in the background. And, you know, I moved from Southern California to Tennessee. Like I'm in the middle of NASCAR.
NASCAR.
What, 3.5
Go
hours?
left.
I was from Charlotte.
Yeah.
And you know, it's here. Bristol, I think, is like 2 hours away. I definitely want to get out to race and experience it. You know, the short track and just the rumbling and just what takes place.
I would be more excited to experience the fan base for NASCAR than actually the NASCAR. I feel like those guys are so diehard, and like I remember when I was in college and I was in like a marketing class or something. NASCAR is one of like the highest ranked and like paid sports.
Yeah. Well, Max always tells his story on how Tide is always a sponsor for NASCAR because it kind of gets in front of the males in a household where those few times where they got to go pick up the laundry, they don't know what the hell to buy because it's not normally their job. So they see Tide and it's familiarity.
I don't like that.
That's a real thing. And
I bet it is.
You know, whatever it may be, but yeah, I don't know. All those things again. I guess when I watch the road racing guys and people that we work with, or whatever. I mean, I'm like, this is sick. Like, you know, I just feel a different type of way when it starts to go into. I guess that the different type of motorsport. But no, I do get how this news is really just big and you know, it's really shaking it up, I guess, and going to make it interesting for next year.
Yeah,
2025 is going to be a wild year for F1, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at all the drivers and where contracts are ending, essentially a vast majority of them were ending in 24, right? Mm-hmm. And 25 is when the new chassis parameters come into play.
Yep.
The current chassis is a couple years old. It's like when it came out, everyone was like, oh my goodness. And that first season, all the cars porpoising all over the place. And, you know, it was kind of interesting to watch how each of the teams went through their engineering journey to solve what they thought was sort of like, oh, this isn't a big deal. And then they get into it like, oh boy, like we got some work to do.
Right.
And with 25 being the kickoff for the next new car, you know, what is that challenge going to bring? And it further, you know, this goes back to your original question. Does Formula One plan this out, right?
Yeah,
yeah. Think about it. You know, 2025 is the new year. Most of the drivers, all their contracts are ending in 24. Mm-hmm. Like, was this 5 years in the making, right?
Right.
A massive just let's all jump into the washing machine and just get spun around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that what 25 is going to be?
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Does seem like it's going that way, but it's going to be an interesting year, 2025. But
yeah.
Let's get through 2024.
Yeah, until then we're just speculating. So, but yeah, I feel like that's basically it. I mean, you know, we'll ask the people watching, viewers, and listening. You know, let us know your thoughts on all this stuff. And if you guys are watching Formula One, if you guys aren't watching Formula One, let us know what you are watching. And you know, besides that, I think we're pretty much covered, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, John, yeah. We will talk to you soon because now we're John's part of the Konig team, and again,
part of the crew.
Again, for the people listening, John is going to be with us this point going forward. I don't know how many podcasts he's going to be on. Hopefully,
Vegas
a lot.
Race was such a mess. I'm sorry, pardon me.
No,
I just saw that Vegas.
Daut's watching TV
gets
over
me.
Here.
It gets me sometimes that like just watching that whole Vegas race bothered me. Like, look, it's just all right. Anyways,
but no, yeah, it's really nice to introduce John over here into our. Viewers and stuff like that. And we're so happy to have him with us. And John, anything else from you?
I'm looking forward to being part of this more often and kind of just taking into being a part of Konig as a whole. Mm-hmm. I've got a little bit of joy and automotive background and all that kind of fun stuff, and was fortunate to resurrect the early 911 that I grew up watching my dad race back in the day, and do that with my kids now, and at the same time, on the weekends, trying to get out and explore a little bit of overlanding in the Gladiator and stuff like that. And,
Nice.
Awesome.
so it's nice to, see some stuff that, work for a brand that's growing and doing what it's doing. And,
Absolutely.
on board for the ride.
That's what we're talking about.
Can't wait, man.
All right, guys.
2024 is going to be a good year for us.
Yeah, it sure
yeah.
is. All right, so guys, let us know again in the comments below what you guys think, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Later.